Okay, hi everyone. So, Friday kind of snuck up on me, and I didn't record the video that I said I was going to record, the one about Willow, because Friday snuck up on me. And so what I'm saying is, I don't have anything recorded for today, so we're just gonna wing it, because I didn't do what I said I was gonna do. I'm bad. I'm, chewing gum, by the way. But so for today's video, I thought that maybe I might answer some questions. So I asked on my Stephieonyoutube Twitter if you had any of those, and I've checked it and I don't see any so far. So I don't guess questions is going to be a thing that I asked. But I know that, like, sighted people always have questions about blindness. So if you have those, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll get them next time. But I thought that I would answer some service dog questions, because I've been talking about service dogs a lot for some reason on my writing Twitter, on my Facebook, my personal Facebook. And I think I might have covered some of these before, but I can't remember, so I'm covering them again. The answers might be different, right? Now, let me just say that I don't have a service dog or a guide dog yet. I applied for a school, and they have a 3-year wait list, so I don't have a service dog or a guide dog yet. So, in books, you see blind people taking their dogs everywhere to large events like concerts and movie theaters and things like that. Well, most of the blind people that have dogs that I know don't do that because they are afraid that they're gonna hurt the dog. The noise can be too loud for the dog's ears, especially if the dog is at a concert, or somebody can accidentally step on the dog because the room is crowded. So most of the blind people that I know that have a dog will take their cane to these large events, and it really, I don't want to say upsets me, but annoys me is the wrong word too. That authors are always just like putting this in books. Like, this blind person doesn't know how to use a cane. And there's another myth that I just threw myself into, and that is that blind people with service dogs don't have to have a cane. And that's not true. Most of the blind people that I know have had to learn how to use a cane. In fact, if you go on just about any school's website for guide dogs, it will tell you that you must have some cane training and you must be able to find your way around. It's called orientation. You must be able to find your way around an area. Which brings me to another myth, and that is that your dog will always know where you're going, and that is not true. You have to know where you're going so you can tell your dog where to go. Now, if your dog has been to a place more than once, they can probably easily find it. And that brings me to another myth, that guide dogs are perfect. And guide dogs are, at the end of the day, dogs. They do bad things. Sometimes, if you make them find things a lot, they will find the thing even when you don't need it. So, like, if you have them finding curbs a lot, they will go and find a curb because you told them good boy or good girl or good dog, and they want to be told good girl or good boy or good dog again. Sometimes, and this happened to me at Alpha Point, I had a friend whose dog would, every time she would hear my voice, would come running for me to pet her, even if she was working. That can happen too. I've had friends who have had guide dogs do really bad things in the stores. I've had friends who had dogs that were like sick on airplanes. I've had friends who had guide dogs that sniffed people's blood in the store. A friend of mine was telling me about that when I was at Off Point, because he was telling me that one of his dogs did that to a lady while they were standing in line at a cash register. So dogs can do doggy type things, doggy bad type things. I've even had friends who have told me that their dog has picked up food off the floor and ate it, even though the dog is trained not to do that. That doesn't mean they won't ever do that, but they do that. I have had friends tell me that their dog took them to the wrong place because they were being told good dog or good boy or good girl or whatever. So that does happen. And another myth is that guide dogs don't play with toys, or that service dogs don't play with toys, and that's not true. Generally, if your dog is off leash, your dog, or not working, I guess I should say, your dog can play with toys. My ex-boyfriend had a roommate because he went to Colorado Center for the Blind, and his roommate had a guide dog, and excuse me, when I first went there, this is before we started dating, but I went there to meet up with him. The first thing his roommate's dog did was bring my cousin his rope thing that had a tennis ball on it because he wanted her to play with him. It was so cute. Now, that's not to say that they can't have like any toy or any treat or whatever, or like anything to chew on, because some guide dog schools will tell you not to do that or tell you to get certain things because certain things can break their teeth or they can swallow bits of whatever and it's not good for them. So, certain things they can't have, but yes, guide dogs especially can play with toys. And I'm really trying not to chew this gum because I hate that people chew gum and talk. But I have it in my mouth and I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. But anyway, another myth that people seem to be under the impression of is that guide dogs will keep people away from the blind person, and that's not true. Guide dogs are trained not to be aggressive or bite because it can be really bad for their owners. So they're that like kind of thing, even though they might be a German Shepherd or a Lab or whatever, is trained out of them or bred out of them in some cases. And another thing is that I hear a lot is that if you have a sign, people will leave your dog alone, and that's not true. I've had plenty of friends tell me stories of people walking up and petting their dog, and it's not just kids, although a lot of times it is kids, but sometimes it's adults. And then they get really mad when you're like, don't pet my dog. But just because they have a sign, people ignore the sign and do what they want. Which I feel like is pretty much society. But, I really shouldn't be doing this as a one take, but I am. So, you know what? You're getting what you get. Pauses and ums and all. And I don't really know what else to cover. I wasn't really expecting to cover guide dogs. Oh, I wanted to cover one more thing. Everybody says guide dog, and the truth is the only school where it's acceptable to call the dog a guide dog is Guiding Eyes, because that's what they call their dogs. Everybody else is a dog guide, unless you're referring to Leader Dogs School, which is an actual thing. It's in Michigan and Florida and Oregon. And then their dogs are called leader dogs. So just throwing that out there. Like, technically, they're supposed to be called dog guides, not guide dogs. But yeah, I always felt like I shouldn't cover this because I don't have a dog. And I always felt it should be someone else. Because I always felt like everybody would just be like, well, what's your experience with that? You don't got a dog. Which is true. So I've always kind of backed away from doing this video, but you know what? It just kind of came out because of the day I had. So there you go. Anyway, I hope you like this video enough to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're brand new. Ring that notification bell. Make sure it's set to all notifications. Leave a comment if you have something to say. Like my Facebook page and follow me on Twitter. Both of those are Stephie2010. They can be found on my YouTube page below the About section. They can also be found down in the description below. And you can also find my email address down in the description below. And you can follow me on my stuff on YouTube, Twitter. Find that down below the About section and down in the description. And you can receive everything YouTube. Sometimes I ask you questions like I did today and nobody answers me, but I do it anyway because that's where my YouTube stuff goes. But anyway, definitely follow me. And I have one more thing that I wanted to say. And this goes along with the myth about the not using your cane. A lot of blind people that I know will carry their cane with them just in case something happens to their dog, which is why it's important that if you know how to use your cane, that's why it's a requirement for you to have a dog. So just in case your dog gets injured, because they can. I seen it happen when I was at Alpha Point. One of my friends had a dog and she burnt her paw on some concrete, the pad of her paw. It's called a hot spot. And she had to be out for like over a month. Like, you couldn't use her as a dog guide for over a month because she burnt her paw and had to have a bandage and heal and everything. So he had to use his cane. So that's why a lot of schools will require that you use your cane. And also, one more thing that I wanted to one more thing that I wanted to cover. I don't know what I'm doing. I just face palmed myself. One more thing that I wanted to cover that kind of goes along with that is that a lot of schools require you to be 14 or older, and you have to have permission from your parent or guardian to get a guide dog. Like, your parent or guardian has to fill out a form. Some schools require you to be 16, some schools require you to be 15, but you can't just go get a dog. Like, you have to have parental permission until you're 18. So that's a thing that most people don't know. But anyway, I know this stuff because when I was thinking about getting a guide dog, I went to my friends, because I have lots of friends who have guide dogs, and I'm like, I'm gonna ask you like 5 billion questions about guide dogs because I want to know. And I probably drove them nuts, but I wanted to know because I wanted to make sure that this was something that I wanted to do. And the one thing that they all told me consistently was that you absolutely have to love dogs. You can't be uncertain about it. You can't just be like, I don't know if I want a dog, because it's a lot of hard work. And I always wanted to do this video with one of my guide dog friends, and maybe someday I'll get them in the video if I can figure out how to do it. Because I always felt like this was a conversation better had with a guide dog handler. But please don't hate on me too much if I got anything wrong. I am not a guide dog handler. I am not an expert. I am just repeating information that my friends with guide dogs gave me because I have an insatiable curiosity, apparently. But I wanted to make sure that this was something that I wanted to do. Like, I didn't just want to be like, oh, I should get a guide dog because everybody is like, get a guide dog. Anyway, I will see you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.